Welcome, Mike Newhart, to the podcast. Entrepreneur, business owner, man of God, husband, father.
That's right.
Meat eater, marathon runner, CrossFit enthusiast.
Slow down. Not that cool.
So many accolades.
Yeah, man. That was awesome. So, Mike, introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you, more than I just gave the highlights.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's nothing else to be said. You hit all the good stuff. So
The prestige.
But no, I'm just a local guy that, I started, if you go on the entrepreneur side, I started business 15 years ago, but you guys here starting this Operation Dad has been awesome because that's something that I have, I was thinking about this earlier. Whenever I started my entrepreneurship, I wasn't married and didn't have any kids. And my number one goal was whenever I had kids, I wanted to be able to take them out of school on a Tuesday to go to the zoo if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so now as I've grown with my business, I've got that opportunity to do those things. I've allowed myself the time freedom to do that. And that's been the most important thing to me. And so there's a lot of times I'll look back at my life and be like, am I doing this right? Because I can look at the world around me that's working 9 to 5 and I ask my wife, like, when's this going to come crashing down? Because this seems almost fake that we've been able to create this life that we have. But entrepreneurship, love being a husband, love being a father, and love Christ with everything we do. We as a family have put Christ at the forefront, and kind of everything else comes second after that. So, a little bit about me.
How many kids you got?
I got 3 kids. I got an 11-year-old, 2 younger ones. They kind of fall, in that category of younger, but I'm not sure, like 9, 8, 7. They're in there somewhere. Been married for 12 years. But 2 oldest are girls and the youngest is a boy. I've been married to my wife for 12 years. So,
that's awesome, man. Congratulations. Well, going off of, we'll just kind of go where you take us. So speaking to that, deciding to get into owning a business and entrepreneurship and seeking that freedom, was that freedom there from day one? Because I think there's that level of like discipline equals freedom. So you go into entrepreneurship and you're thinking about, I want to have the freedom to leave on a Tuesday, but was that there year 1, year 2, or when did that start to set in?
Interestingly enough, it kind of always has been. Because when I first started, I wasn't married, didn't have any kids. I had basically 0 responsibilities. I remember, and so personally with my life too, I've changed 100%. When I first started this, I wouldn't call myself a Christian. So, I remember me and the guy that would help me, we would get done we'd go wash 2 houses, so I own an exterior cleaning business. We'd get done by noon. The rest of the time we'd go fishing, we'd go golfing, we'd go swimming. Like, I had no worries. But as we've progressed, I got married, had more responsibilities. Had my first kid, more responsibilities. And so everything has always added up to more responsibilities, but still I've always kept, or at least tried to keep, the time freedom aspect of it. Everybody wants to be financially free. We all want money. It takes money to live. But for me personally, like, that time freedom has always been more important. I remember I had like I said earlier, I question a lot of things. I'm like, am I doing this right? When's this going to come crashing down? I had lunch with a guy here in town that's a very successful realtor, and he told me, one time, and before he was a realtor, he did some other stuff traveling. He's like, I woke up, it was my kid's birthday, and I put my feet on the ground, and I couldn't remember, was I in China or am I in Japan? And he's like, that wasn't suitable for me anymore, so I had to change something. And whenever he said that to me, I'm like, maybe what I'm doing is right, because, and you guys have children. Whenever I go to bed a lot at nighttime, and I think, man, I probably wasn't the best dad today. My son asked me to throw the football with him, and I was busy and I was tired, and I did it for a few minutes, but dude, I could have gave 10 more minutes to him. And so I go to bed with a lot of guilt at times, but then I have to remind myself, which, this is not a comparison game. I fully believe that, but I'm like, I still was better than that dad. I'm like, dude, you can't do that. This is my son, this is my, and we want to instill values in them, hard work, disciplined life. So, there's been some discipline that's came with it over the years. But also I think that, any of you guys that are in business, you understand, like, I think people make business too hard.
Yes.
It's not that hard. No. When I first started, there was a buddy of mine that started one in Champaign, and he's like, how are you still able to do this stuff? He's like, I am dedicating 80, 90 hours a week to this. And I was like, bro, am I doing it wrong? Like, I'm having success, but also success looks so different to everybody.
Yeah, right.
Like, my definition of success is different than yours, and yours, So I've always had to keep that in the forefront, too, of what's important to me.
Well, I think you get caught in the society as a whole, when you go into entrepreneurship, it's easy to get caught into the I've got to outwork, and that means hours.
Yeah.
That means I got to put in 80 to 90 hours because I got to outwork everybody because I've got my own business and I want to. And it's almost like you get, at some point, there's diminishing returns. Just like in the gym. If I worked out for 7 hours a day, at some point,
it's doing you no
it's
good.
not doing me any good. So I think it's the same a bit. Like if you're just constantly grinding, being like, and now there's seasons for that, sure. But like if that's your constant, just I got to log this so I can then tell Mike about my 80 to 90 hour work week.
Right. Yeah,
like what's the point?
What's he missing out on the back end? Like
right.
you said, if you had a family at that time and you had that free time, then that time is that expense that you're saving. Whereas spending it with working, and you're missing that valuable time, just even if it is 5 minutes to throw a football or whatever else.
Yeah. Well, and I've made these posts before on we get them longer as adults than we do as children. Our time frame with them as kids is very, very short. It's maybe 10 to 12 years because once that younger teenage, adolescent years begin, they're trying to find more of themselves as their body's beginning to change. So as a father, these younger years are super important. So that's, to me, that's being successful. And then once they've gained a little bit more of some maturity and they've witnessed, us as fathers as working with our wives, showing how what love looks like. And of course, like you said, even as Christ followers, they're sponges still. And I think if they're watching like I know my kids really do, they're really good observers, and they'll implement that hopefully to later in life. But right now, I try to soak up as much time as I possibly can. And I fall short, Pearson wanted to play cops and robbers until 10:30 last night. No, dude, we gotta start powering down, watch the Home Improvement.
Dad's got an early workout session.
I gotta be up at 3:30 so we can get this recorded and done. So later today, I have the time so we all can spend time together.
Right. Well, and that's why, like you say, forwards thinking, backwards planning. As someone that owns a gym and works in a church, it's really important for me to not have my kids grow up resenting those two things.
Yeah.
Like if dad's gone all the time because of those and can't, I want them to view it as these are awesome places to go. This is awesome. I get to go to work with dad and play in the gym, or I get to go to work with dad and play in the nursery, those kind of things where I don't want them growing up resenting what I do because part of it's, a dream to own the gym. But I don't want him to grow up and never want to go to the gym because dad was there all the time and never had time for me.
And do you guys want them to follow in your footsteps when it comes to that, or you want to try to have them find their own path? Even with you had the washing business, now you got the Christmas lights. Do you want your kids to? Because I know you took your son the other day to work, because you called it "Bring Your Kid to Work Day," which is cool. So is that something? Has he ever just kind of picked your brain at all about anything that you've done?
You know what? I don't know. So I was thinking about this later. He's 8. So he's the youngest. He's 8. And I don't, they're so young. Right. All I can do is be an example of what it means to work hard. Well, first put Christ first in your life. How to work hard. And wherever he goes beyond that, the dude's 8 and he loves sports. But I'm also here's the deal, dude. You're going to be a 6-foot white guy. You're going to have a little dog in you first if you're going to be playing any sports. But also, in life, you've got to figure it out, because I don't care what you do. Whatever you do, you're going to do it all, though. But, I don't know what he wants to do, or, who knows.
Okay. Well, I don't want to put words in Mike's mouth, but I've watched your stuff for a while, and I think we're on the same wavelength here. And I think it goes back to, I talk about in the book, my family statement. What is the statement for my family? And it is, I want the Andersons to pursue God-sized goals destined to fail without divine intervention, serve, lead, and help others, but also not be afraid to fail. Go chase dreams. So if Asher pulls anything or Addie pulls anything from what I've done, I don't necessarily want it to be, I want to run the gym, or I want to go be called into ministry. I want it to be, man, Dad took risks and he chased his dream, and I want them to do that, whatever that is for them, because I don't know what his, he could want to be like an astronaut. I don't care, whatever it is, I want him to be I can try that because my dad wasn't afraid to try stuff.
Well, we talked this week listening to 50 Cent's book, and he talks about attacking fear head on. Yeah. Don't let it come at you and make the first punch. Attack it, because he talks about growing up in the boxing gym, and that's when he first started, he was just hesitant and just kept getting beat, and he's was always on my heels and I didn't know how to fix it. And these coaches like, you got to make the first punch. You got to be attacked. You got to be on your toes, always moving forward. And that's what we all really want. Just keep moving forward, attack life at full speed, and just go, like you said, all out with whatever it is you want to do.
Be on the offense, not
Yeah.
the defense.
Well, we made it to football, and we're only like 10 minutes in. But yeah, it's like in football. What happens when you?
You took it to football. I was in boxing.
All right. What happens in football if you play scared? You get hurt.
Yeah.
Like.
Yep.
But if you play fearless and you fly around, your odds of getting injured go way down. It's that hesitancy that causes injury and failure. So I don't want to be hesitant about trying stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. So
Yeah.
awesome. All right, we'll keep grilling Mike over here. So you alluded to you've changed a lot in your life, and so what was the catalyst for that change, and how did you change, and then what has been the biggest impact of that change?
That's a great question. So it's a great question because I don't know that I had a lot to do with it as far as, my catalyst for change. So I call it, a old Mike, new Mike.
Yeah.
And I had a group at one point called Structure U. Whenever I had started this group, I did a lot of, it was my young Christian days. So the catalyst for my growth, my faith was all Christ. My salvation is free. He was the one that said, hey, you're the guy I'm choosing. Not choosing, but I guess he chose me before the foundation of the earth. So he let me have a leash. I got to the end of that leash before he said, all right, now it's time for you to start glorifying me. I'm going to save you, and you're going to be the new trajectory for your family. So it's never been about me. It's never been about Mike Newhart. When I was leading this Structure U, I was patting myself on the back a lot. Sure. I had to nix that because I was like, I'm not doing this for the right reasons. I need to get back, get my family in order, get my life in order, because here I was trying to be obedient to God, but also patting myself on the back. Look, if I can do this, anybody can do this. And that was really, I have a lot of guilt over that. I still have a lot of guilt over that because there's guys that are in there now that are, there's one guy that's pastoring a church, and I'm like, theologically, I know that this guy shouldn't probably be pastoring this church. It's all, I think that he's still growing, so it's great. God's working through him, but I had a lot of guilt with that. So the catalyst for my faith was just God doing his thing through me, and now it's, me walking in obedience. It's me trying to be, a good husband, a good father, and leading by example. But God doing his thing, me sitting back, and realizing that I've got no part in this. He's using me to however he, that's what our prayer is, We'll thank God for this food. Use us however you wish to glorify you, and that's where we stand on it. And I'm like, and another thing that's really helped me, a couple of years ago, I was on a trip out to California, and I was a little bit hesitant because I was
newer.
Not necessarily newer, but I was, what if this plane crashes? What if I die? Where's my, and these thoughts go into, what am my family going to do? But then once I fully understood God's sovereignty, everything's going to play out the way it's going to play out. Yep. I was like, if I die, as Paul says, to die is gain. Like, woohoo, like, here we go. And I told my wife that, and she's like, well, I don't like you phrasing it like that, but I get it, I'm like, yeah, it's all going to play out as it should. So understanding God's sovereignty through everything, like we asked about, do you want your kids to maybe follow in your footsteps? I'm like, I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't care.
Right.
I used to say, like,
as long as they've got a relationship with their creator, I'm good.
Right. I use this term, like, nothing matters, yet everything matters. How I'm living my day-to-day life matters, but also in the grand scheme of things, God's going to do what he wants to do. He doesn't need me. I'm just here to help kind of do what I can do to help a little bit. Vessel.
So good. I think you said some profound things there, because I had you on the old podcast when you started Structure U.
Yeah.
And then we went to lunch that time after that, and you talked about kind of stepping away from Structure U because of those reasons. And so that has been influential in, like, things that I look at because I'm like, okay, check myself like Mike did. Is this about me, or is this about the goal, like the purpose behind it? And so, like, with the podcast, with the whatever, like, it's not about us. It's about if we get one download,
right?
Who cares?
It's a win.
Like, we're doing it because at the end of the day, we're doing it for, like, our own growth and holding each other accountable. And if other people want to join, that's flowers. But it's not about the the comments or the likes or the praise, and you got to check yours because that's human nature. To
Yeah.
want to be, I want to put myself up, but it's like no, God's given us a platform. Like let's use it to glorify Him. And then what you said about prayer, like you talked about theology, and it takes Christians a really long time, and it took me a lot of time with God to understand that, man, what am I praying for? Am I praying for what I think the outcome should be and what I would like it to be? Or am I praying for His will? Because even Christ, when He knew He was going to die, didn't pray for like, hey God, I think there's this other way we could do this, and this would be
Keep
really
me around
good.
a little bit longer,
It was
so
just
maybe...
like, if it be your will. Like whatever your will is. And I think when you look at Scripture and it says, ask and you shall receive, your prayers will be answered. It's like if you pray inside His will.
Yeah.
And His will is always way better than what, than what we could imagine. And not even talking like blessings and things, but like you go back to like healing and praying for healing. Well, sometimes that healing is on the other side.
Yeah. For me, it always came back to the fruits of the Spirit, and what we're trying to do here. It's not about what it is we're trying to do. And I think back even whenever, because if I'm not mistaken, you did 75 Hard first, correct? And then I think you introduced it to Colton.
Well, I'm not sure how that went down.
Yeah, I don't remember
And
that.
I
remember when Mike did it,
No,
though.
I think I did it.
Did you do it
right
first?
out of college? But
Oh.
I didn't share about it yet until Structure U did Structure U did the Atomic Habits, the 30-day challenge,
Yep.
and then I did that, and then I ran a second round of 75 Hard because that like sparked was like.
I just feel like this was the catalyst, and I mean I almost think that is the foundational piece to what really was the catalyst for even all this, because that was where you introduced it to me for that 1 year, and I failed, and I know you and I had talked about doing it, and it's so like it's just that all this stuff came almost full circle now, because here we are having a conversation with, and I think it's just super cool because that in itself helped me find a purpose again, and just on my diet and my exercise and my reading and my faith, and just it all kind of came full circle whenever all that stuff started 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
And I just think that that's cool because, too, from the background, I have no idea that these things are going on. To see you guys come in here, I mean, who gets up at 3:30 in the morning to come work out and do a podcast? I mean, that's cool. And I think that we're all cut from the same cloth because doing things that suck...
It's fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's fun.
Like, I mean... There's so many things we could point to that say this would really suck, but I love that self-torture. I'm doing let me transition first. Like thinking about the sanctification process too. In my whole process and my growth with Christ, that's part of my prayer at night is show me where I'm struggling, and because I know that my struggles are there, I know what they are, but also if this isn't aligned with your will, show me so that I can, along this whole sanctification process, I can grow closer to you. I used to open the Bible and be like, this chapter is going to speak to me today. What am I going to get out of this? And I feel so dumb now because I'm like, dude, but it's all growth. We all are at some point. But once I got to where I'm like, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to see how I can be more like Christ and reflect my life more closer to His, because still, Mike Newhart doesn't matter.
Man, that's so good. Like, trying to, another one that takes like, and I'm not matured in Christ, but like it's a constant justification and sanctification. But you just said another great thing, like, people open the Bible and think it's about them, and it's not about you. The Bible's for you. Like
for you.
Stop opening
it's your ultimate playbook.
Yes. Stop opening the Bible thinking this is I'm just like David. No, you're not.
Right.
Like you're not.
Yeah.
Like, this is to tell you about God, and it's for you, not about you. And so I think that's a profound piece.
And when I open the Bible, I look at Paul who says, I'm the chief sinner. I'm like, I am like that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I can
Now I can relate.
Yeah.
Why do I do what I don't want to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I like you. But back to the whole doing what sucks. I've been doing carnivore diet now for like day 27, but I realized I love to torture myself. My kids and I have been watching Buddy's Bakery before bed. So I'm watching all these shows.
Mouth's got to be watering.
Why?
Right, my wife and I went to Costco last night, and I'm like walking through the bakery section, just drooling, like, these things are great. Because my flesh, I desire sugar. Like I had to realize, like,
Same.
dude, I'm an addict. Like I love sugar.
Oh, yeah.
But doing what sucks is just really fun, and kind of torturing myself through discipline, I guess.
Well, you're getting ready to do something that's going to torture yourself through discipline. You invited other people along.
Right. Nobody wants to run a marathon.
No.
Nobody likes running. Anybody that says they like running, I mean, there are psychos, I think.
They've got different demons. In
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who likes running is just waiting to be found.
Right. Because I don't mind running, but also it's so boring.
It is.
Like, I need to do a long run today, but I'm like, gosh, dang, it's going to be so boring.
Yeah.
Like,
Sorry about the legs.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I'm going to feel that later.
Yeah, you'll thank us in the long run, though.
Yeah.
Right.
In the long run, it'll help, but yeah, today,
Tomorrow, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. So you're running the Illinois Marathon?
Yes.
Nice. What spurred this?
Well, I've done a couple marathons in the past, but a guy from our, I'm big into CrossFit. I love CrossFit.
Oh, yeah.
Guy from my CrossFit gym who is down 80 pounds.
Let's go.
He started at 340.
Nice.
He's down to
Baby
260. Yeah,
Love it.
Kevin Cook says, hey, would you ever be interested in committing to a marathon with me? I'm like, dude, if you can do it, I'm absolutely down for it. So he's doing it. Now I think we've got 4 or 5 other guys that are going to do it. So
Isn't it
Here we
funny
go.
how all it takes, like, would you have done it by yourself would you have just signed up this year
well, I'm the
without somebody prompting you?
if I wanted to, yes.
Yeah.
Like the psycho part of us.
Yeah,
it takes that
that
one
push.
little
Yep.
trigger, and then you're like, yep, and then you'll be the catalyst for somebody else to do it, and then they'll be the catalyst.
Right, because I want everybody to do it. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do it. Sure, great, I'll do it. But I did run one. This is like a humble brag. I woke up one morning, I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon today. When I lived out near, just way out in the country. So I put a cooler out by the road. And I just turned on my watch. I did 26.2 without any headphones or anything like that. Just to do it
raw
to see.
dog in a marathon? You're crazy.
Raw dog
My
marathon.
goodness.
Well, because the first one I did, I didn't train. It took me. Well, okay, here's a funny story. They said the average person. I read an article. The average person can run a marathon in 4.5 hours. So I'm like, dude, I'm average. I don't need to train for marathon. I'm an average athlete. I see the guy holding the stick for like he's a pacer for 4:30. I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with this guy the whole marathon. So I look, and next thing I know, like he's like drifting into
pull it
the.
away.
I can't see him. I'm like, that's all right. 4:45 comes and goes. The 5-hour guy comes and goes. The 5:15 guy comes and
Now we're getting
goes.
close to the cap.
I finally finished at 5:20, and I'm like, oh, that's so embarrassing. I couldn't walk for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's so
But
funny.
see, I raw dogged the last one, and I did that one in 4:08. But I trained for that one.
Nice.
But still, it's like wherever you put your mind to and you're training for, you
Yeah.
can do a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
it's anything in life. Do a little training. What you focus on is what you're gonna get results with.
Yeah, well, I think, and it goes back to show, like, a guy asked you, and that was like, yeah, I'll do another one. And then you posted about it and said, like, running sucks. Everyone hates running. If you want to, like, take a leap, like, go push yourself. And so then my wife's a runner, and I am not. Running is punishment from 18 years of football. So you posted, and then I was like, So then I went and ran. And now I'm signed up for the half.
Are you good stuff?
So
I
there
didn't
you go.
know that.
Yeah, so you inspired. I'm not doing the full because
Yeah.
I haven't ran it, but we got 75 days. So you're in the same, got
Yep.
the long run today. So we'll, yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
So see you
Good
there.
stuff.
See you there.
That's really cool. And back to what we focus on. You're now focusing on a little bit of this training. But also, you guys have created something awesome here at the Operation Dad. Like,
Thank you.
you're focusing on being good fathers.
Right.
You're inspiring others to be good fathers. I'm like, it's so cool that this is your niche, if you will.
Sure.
And it's working. It's opening up a lot of eyes to dads around the world, country. I don't know how far your reach is, but
Yeah,
We
we got
haven't-
some.
we
We got
haven't
some.
hit
Shout out the
Antarctica
guys
yet.
in the UK.
UK.
Shout out the dudes in Australia.
dude, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
We got some. The Canadian, the
pretty
great,
wild.
take off the Great White North. Got them up there. But yeah, man. And I think going back to the structure, you ended that because you saw you were doing it for the wrong reasons at the time, or whatever your convictions were. But I think there is a level of even if Mike was even if you were completely doing it for the wrong reasons, like at every turn you were like, this is about me. What's crazy is God still worked through all that, and you've got traces of structure 3 years later we still talk about, because that's how we kind of we were all in it, like that ripple effect. If you throw a rock at a pond, it just keeps going. And so where you were the rock that hit it, and you were like, look at this big wave I made. Well, then you step away. Well, that thing's still rippling out and out and out 3-4 years later. So that's super cool. So even though you may feel like you were doing it for the wrong reason, like it has impacted people's lives, for years
That's
and,
cool.
and brought
I
people
appreciate
together. So.
Because what you thought may have been for the wrong reasons, it was the right reasons for somebody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it was that was the beginning, that was the start of my walk with Christ, and just you doing the things that you were doing at that time helped me in my growth, even just through some of the scriptures and some of the things you were trying to do. Because I know you and I, your retreats and stuff, like I just wanted to be part of them so bad, but just like the timing was never good for like when I could actually get to the cabins and things like that. And it's just, but it was just, I'm like, man, because I felt at the time what you were doing had a lot of positive influence on me, and I really enjoyed the whole structure you part of it.
Well, and I think even when we started this, we talked about a retreat or some point.
Yeah,
just
right.
basically going like, well, Mike did this one time. We should, like, maybe we could do something like that. Like, yeah. So, I mean, like you said, that ripple effect has gone on and on and on, and here we sit.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's
And
awesome.
it's something that, you know, a couple of guys and I, from my church and myself have talked about it. Like, should we, no, we don't want to copy you guys, but like, should we bring back the Structure U? But also, we wouldn't call it Structure U. It'd be like Structure U 2.0, like focused on Christ, because that's still got to be the center of everything. Like one of the things, like as for me and my family, we're going to our house, we're going to serve the Lord, and we need to find a way to spread this more so than about, hey, look at me running this 4-hour marathon, like I'm so good, train, you can do this.
Yeah,
So
good.
I smell a collab.
I was just about to say, don't worry about. You can copy us verbatim, because this what is that? The famine mentality that if somebody comes, it's like, who cares?
Yeah,
You're going to reach people that we won't reach.
Yep.
Right.
You're going to talk about things we won't, because we've all got different backgrounds. So I think that's just, that's the human nature, the fear of competition, because it's not competition when you're doing it for yourself. Like
Plenty
I
of
said,
success for everybody.
there could be another mission dad that blows up and is awesome and worldwide. Who cares? We're going to still be here, because it's how we're trying to operate as fathers within our own family, and just reach someone else to lead and inspire the next generation and be present. So,
and you guys are doing a great thing here. I mean, it's just, I love seeing your posts with your kids doing different things, because most dads, I shouldn't say most dads, don't let me say that, but
there's
Majority.
that out there.
well, you can see. I wish more dads were more active.
Yeah.
Right.
You can see, kids that act the way they do, like, wish your dad spent more time with you.
Yeah.
Well, it's I grew up with a dad that talked a big game, but never was there until mom got remarried to stepdad, and he was the one that was like, hey, let's go play golf. Hey, let's go. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is what it's supposed to be
That's
like.
cool.
This is great.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not hating on dads, but like Asher had a birthday party a couple weeks ago. Like, it was at a jungle gym thing, and the amount of dads that just pop a squat and talk to each other, I'm like, get in the jungle gym. And maybe there's a level of like the physical fitness side that they can't, but like, why not be on their level? Like, go play with it. Like, just because they've got friends, like, and then you're in there and every kid's like lighting up because there's the monster or whatever. Like, that's fun. Like,
Do you bring up a good point? Like, sorry if I interrupted, but like the level of, are you an asset or are you a liability as a father? Are you is you're being out of shape? Are you now a liability to your family because you can't get out there and play with them?
Well, it's like the picture of the firefighter carrying the woman through the flood while the guy's
dude
carrying the
shoes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
right.
which one do you want to be?
The guy carrying the shoes or the guy carrying the personality.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's, for some people that's a really hard place to start, but like,
Just start.
it is, you just got to start.
Yeah.
Because if your kid's 4 and you're struggling to roll around and play on the floor with them and get up and off the floor, like, don't write it off. Like, you could start now. And by the time they're 8, 9, even 6, 7, like, then you're able to go do things with them, and that's the memory they'll have. They won't, they won't go back and say, well, Dad didn't play, because the majority of their life, he will.
Well, I talked about it in the book. Like, there's no better feeling than playing with my kids. Like,
Yeah.
being able to get down and play with them, and it keeps us youthful. It keeps us as kids. Like, we talked last week, the wives are like, are you ever going to grow up?
No.
Your wife's going to get a full-on experience when we go to Ohio of how big of kids we can be when we go through this thing. So, no, like, that's the best part, is just being a big kid and enjoying the tossing the football or wrestling or cops and robbers. And, we got laser tag at home. It is so much fun just running around the house. Yeah, we let him win, but hey, it's fun. Like, I love being a kid, and I'll never grow out of it.
We're gonna lose if we ever were gonna get a Mattel deal. I'm losing it. 'Cause I hated on the Hot Wheels cars the other podcast about the track. I thought this was a genius idea. I got him Hulk hands for Christmas, like those big foam ones, thinking they'd be softer because he loves to just come up and just like
jack you,
whack me. I was like, oh, perfect. Those things are harder than his fist, and I just gave him more square footage. Like now he can miss and still catches me. Like, Mattel, these are supposed to be soft. Like, come on, man.
And I got humbled pretty at a younger age when my mom passed away, and that's when I realized there is an expiration date for all of us, and we don't know when that could be. And I feel like if my time here is short, I want to try to make as much of my time in a presence of, whether it be in shape, whether it be just emotionally for my kids spiritually. Like, I want to be able to have strong values for them to be able to witness to. So if my time does happen to come up shorter than what I hope for it to be, then at least they'll remember me for playing cops and robbers last night, wrestling during football games, playing 21 with Aria, going with walks for Elizabeth, having those conversations with Elizabeth whenever she's about to embark into college, because it was quick, and I'm just like, wow. So I'd had to take a step back and really reflect on myself for a second and realize I've got to change some of the things that I'm doing, because I don't know when this could end. And so it's like that's always in the forefront of my mind, because I've seen a lot of it happen, and not that I'm fearful of it, only because I know where I'm going to go when this time here on the earth is gone.
But you respect it.
But I respect what I've got, and I need to take advantage of the time that I do have, because it is short. And I think we forget, again, back to my kids are only little for, that's a decade, and then they're in that frame of mind that they're just not those little kids anymore. And I want to be able to be down there on their level for that moment, because I'm going to hopefully change with them. So when they come to me, like, I'm still right there at their level, and we can have those conversations.
Yeah, and I'll speak to, when I did my internship with Corey out at Max, and then I got the gym, it was all about content, and then it became like Mike talked about, where this is about me, and I'm checking the likes, and I'm checking that. And then in the last year, I've kind of had like a different mindset on it. If I can take it away from about me and who sees it now, because for me, and like you post content, you post stuff, and I was like, who's this for? And then my mindset shifted, because like I've talked about before, my uncle passed away when I was 13, and we were really close. He was a musician. Well, I found all of his old recordings and all of his old music, and I listened to it all the time, because it's like this piece he left behind, which was way more important than any like legacy financially or anything like that. And so I love to journal and like this podcast and posting things, because if something happens to me, like my kids are going to get like, this is going to be invaluable for them, because they're going to get to know who Dad was, because they're only 4. So if like I'm leaving some creativity in who I am behind, so that if God calls me home, like I just know how important that. So it's like, man, if that's my mindset behind it, and I'm thinking about it that way, that changes the heart behind it.
Yeah, the heart motive for sure.
Because how powerful would it be for your kids to go back and watch all that Structure U stuff, if you know what I mean?
Right.
Because man, I know Dad was quite like this. Like,
well, especially if they hit a rough spot in life,
right?
They can go back and look like, look what Dad did. He hit a spot, and he realized that things needed to change, and look what he did. Look at the pivot he took, and look where it ended up, and how grateful we were for him making that pivot. And I can do that.
Well, and I don't even think it needs to necessarily be public. There's things I write in a journal and stick on a bookshelf and things that like no one's ever going to see, and they may never. I hope they never have to. I hope they never want to read them. I hope they never. I hope it's just for me and my brain. But like, just documenting some stuff that like they can use later. We're blowing past our old time right now. I love it.
We're gonna have to extend that
outro, baby. But I'll edit that out. So ignore that pause. We just hit you with the outro. But yeah, I think that's that idea of leaving something behind that they can use later.
And because I've made my fair share of mistakes.
We all have.
Elizabeth has witnessed to those. So like she has the old me and the new me, whereas the other two probably got a little bit more of the new me. So they've never seen that part of me. Now, granted, that conversation may or may not come later on. We'll just wait and see. But to your point, even all the journals that I have, Manette those are books that they're going to open up when they're going through my shelves, and they're going to hopefully skim through them. And there's going to be a section on there that I guarantee you that they're going through something, and they'll be like, man, Dad went through it too. And then they read on a little bit further, and this is how they got through it, and it'd be through Christ.
Yeah.
You know, I like what you said as well about that we all make mistakes. And I think it's important, too, as a father, when my kids see me make a mistake, I need to, apologize as quickly as possible. The other day, I turn around, I see my daughter hitting my son, like, repeatedly hitting him. And I was like, and we were in public, I'm like, turn around, you're done. Like, if I see it again, you know, and then later she's like, maybe my mom was there. She's like, well, Hooli was actually in her face, and he wouldn't stop, and she had enough. And I was like, well, all right. So we had a conversation like here, Waverly. I'm extremely sorry.
Yeah.
You have to understand, the second person always gets caught.
That's right.
You got caught, but I overreacted, and I should have, and I'll take care of him. Don't worry about it. But, you know, I have to, I'm always the first to apologize, because I don't know if I've ever heard my dad apologize for anything.
My parents didn't.
You know, and you know, the other day, Julie and I were in Walmart, and you know, now they have these like special checkouts for spark drivers. Dude, everything is packed. And I'm like walking up to this thing, I didn't know what it was. And she's like, you can't go there. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, there's nobody in line. She's like, that's for spark drivers. And I say, where's the spark drivers? And she's like, well, they're not here. I'm like, well, let me go here. And she's like, you can't. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then after that, I was kind of rude. And I was like, so I'm checking out by myself. And she's like, we have that specially set up with like cameras to check the spark drivers, make sure they don't steal. And I was like, my bad. I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry. I was rude.
Yep.
You know, my son's with me, and he's like, why'd you apologize? I'm like, oh, 'cause I was kind of rude to her. You know, I didn't have to do that. And so he's seeing me apologize. They're hearing me apologize because, dude, we screw up so much.
All the time.
All the time.
Well, and that's, like you just said, how big of a deal is that? You know what I mean? But to recognize it and say, well, they're watching. Because sometimes you think they're only watching in the big moments. But they're watching in the little moments. And how you talk and how you communicate with your spouse. And, you know, they're always listening.
Well, that little saying, it's not what's taught, but what's caught.
Oh, yeah.
We see that so much in our kids' lives.
So good. Yeah, man. So for you, what if, as we begin to wrap up here, if you were going to send a message out to young fathers or fathers of other kids, what would you want them to know if you were going to encourage, inspire, and motivate them?
Finally, somebody else is getting the tough questions off the
Right.
spur.
I like having guests.
You know, that's an interesting question because I like to think we as fathers are the head of the household. You know, the pastor of our churches, whenever we did those retreats, he would come out and he would give a quick little sermon or talk on the husband goes first, the father goes first. If we're putting Christ at the center of our lives, which we should, then everything else should fall into place. Yeah. And so I, as the father, you know, okay, so example, doing this carnivore diet. I don't make any of my family do it, but they all automatically hop on board. You know, my wife, she's not 100% carnivore, but she's eating and she's sticking to this meal plan where she's lost, I think she's down like 10 pounds.
Nice.
My kids have no choice. This is what we're making. You're probably going to eat it, you know? And they also, now they're holding me accountable. Well, Daddy, like the other day I'm looking at these pancakes. They're like, don't even think about it, you know? And I'm like, all right, you know? So, you know, if you're putting Christ at the center of your family, and you're living, you know, we as husbands too would like to use that that scripture, you know, your wife should submit to your husbands. But we always forget the second part of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we as husbands need to be loving our wives as Christ loved the church.
Right.
So if I'm leading from the front in that manner, everything else should be secondary almost, you know, if I'm putting him first. And so, but just being there for your children, being there for my wife. My wife says, I like to be seen, heard, and the feeling of security. If I'm tapping on those three things, everything else goes. And you know, the same with my children. They want to be seen, and they want to be heard, and they want to feel safe. We all know that as we think about our fathers. Like, we always wanted that, you know? That's about all I got.
That's all you got? I love it, man. Well, hey, appreciate you getting up at, gosh, what'd you get up? 3:30?
Yeah.
Get here?
It was perfect. I loved it.
Loved it. He loved it. 3:30, smoked some legs, got some podcasting done, and it's only 5:37.
There we go.
So go start your day. That's episode 57.
Peace.